Welcome to the Mightiest Warriors podcast, where we talk with people like you and I who have gone through the forge, through humbling and amazingly heroic stories. We break down what's vital and essential so we can all be nourished and supported through our shared experiences. This episode of the Mightiest Warriors is sponsored by Essential Provisions, a whole foods, nutrition, sports, and performance company dedicated to nourishing the warrior in each of us. And it is a real honor for me to be with Juan Whiting, Dr. Juan Whiting, and just a brief snapshot of his amazing bio. Juan is the president and co-founder at the Hinterland Institute, where he leads a movement empowering veterans to steward federal and private land across America, promoting national sovereignty and providing a new mission for those who have served. The Institute equips veterans with the skills and tools to regenerate landscapes, strengthen domestic food and food security, such a huge issue that Juan and I will dive into. He's also the founder of Stray Acres, a grant consulting company that develops tailored funding strategies and helps individuals who are really committed to regenerative agriculture to acquire grant proposals and acquire assets that can help them manage high impact agricultural projects globally. He is a fourth generation farmer, which is extraordinary. And I suspect becoming a bit of a rare intergenerational breed in 21st century life. He's also a U.S. Army Civil Affairs officer and has served as an agricultural specialist in the Army Civil Affairs and is a subject matter expert that is connecting people from various backgrounds and all in the service of community, this beautiful planet we live in. And Juan, what an extraordinary mission that you find yourself on.
Well, yeah, it's definitely been extraordinary, and I'm excited to be here. I will make one one quick correction. I'm actually not a doctor. I did not finish. I had a dissertation that I still needed to finish when I was out in Rwanda, and that was kind of curtailed during the COVID epidemic. I was supposed to be doing, it was on coffee breeding. So supposed to get all these individual farmers together to be doing the research. And obviously COVID was not very conducive for doing any kind of work like that.
Yeah.
And there was more important work for me. So this is just a pleasure. Excited to be with an actual doctor.
Yeah, I love this. And I had a conversation with Juan and got to know him through a recent collaborative effort that our company, Essential Provisions, is seeking. And in my professional journey, Juan, I really experienced this transformation from critical care, really kind of high tech, acute care, working with people in complete free fall, essentially, and have migrated substantially in the direction of prevention, and so much of which revolves around nutritional science and the power, right? This novel concept of the power of whole foods. And one of the things that has struck me, Juan, just to kind of set the stage for the amazing vision that you and others have, is the importance of topsoil, right? The importance of quality soil that allows us to grow. And I think it's fair to say that we've seen a bit of a crisis worldwide in the degradation of agricultural topsoil around the world for many reasons that you can certainly help us understand better. But the bottom line is, as stewards of land, we've really seen a huge loss of this precious asset. And with a population of 8+ billion, there are more mouths to feed, and more people we know are food insecure. And as a clinician, that's a very strong driver of diminished lifespan and quality of life. And so this is such a huge issue from an eco health perspective, from a public health perspective. And maybe a good place to start, Juan, is just your own journey. What kind of got you on this path of stewardship, land management, and as a farmer, I'm sure you've got some unique background there.
Yeah, well, I can say that I was very similar to you, very reactionary. I grew up just understanding that a plowed field was that smell of a plowed field was a good smell. That's what my grandpa taught me. We did very conventional agriculture, and that's what I kind of grew up in, and that's where I stayed for a while. It wasn't until I moved to Rwanda and started focusing on more regenerative practices and eventually started my own farm management company that I went fully regenerative and organic. And that's when, the light bulb switched on. But I had a very visceral experience when we went off the drugs, so to speak. We had been watching as the soil was not responding the way that I had known soil should. I had been diving into Alan Savory's holistic management book and was starting to think more intentionally. I was looking at, rather than just looking at the crops and the production and the yields, I was diving into what was happening around me. I was looking at the ecosystem, looking at the weeds, looking at my soil and conditions and seeing that things weren't covered and that there was no worms. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find one worm on my farm. And we were doing habaneros that we were trying to ship those over. And it was really trying to control as much as we could, right? And that was my experience, was everything, and going very similar to like you were talking about, that when you're working in emergency medicine, it's all about control. And we're really good at this in America. It's like we're good with surgery. We know how to be very, laser focused and fix something like a broken arm or we can put things back together. But what we're not good at is preventative. And that's where I found on my farm that we just hit a breaking point. And I said, guys, we're getting off the drugs completely, which was not the right, it's not the right way to do it, to go full cold turkey. But when we did, we found that the aphids came back like in this just massive storm, and they just destroyed our everything. So my first experience was not a good one.
Yeah.
But then 2 weeks later, what I found is like we just let them there, and we let them stay there, and then the ladybugs came back. And then 2 weeks late after that, I started to see worms everywhere. Now, my experience with that really what it showed was that our ability to recover soil, our ability to recover some of these ecosystems. A lot of people think that the damage has been done, it's too late. The doomsday spreaders they're out there. But if you've actually worked in this environment, you know that the ecosystems are very resilient, very much like our bodies. We can recover really quickly. You just go watch someone that has not exercised for 10 or 15 years. Watch them when they start to eat healthy and then start to move their body, even if it's just walking for 7 miles a day. Everything changes. And we started to see that with our farms. Just basic stuff like covering the soil, just not spraying these chemicals, which we were getting some crazy chemicals. And that changed everything for me. Farming became less of a job, and ranching became less of a job, and it became more of like a calling. And, I've taken that and been able to push that on a much larger level. I started looking at land in a different way as well. And I said, I don't have to own land to steward it. to be intentional, to feed people. I've never felt this deep, like I need to own thousands of acres to be able to have the impact that I want to have. And maybe that's like a new age kind of way of looking at it, but I think there's a lot of young people that are saying the same thing. They're like, look, we're ready to get the job done. We don't need to use old models that are outdated. And I think that's the approach that I took when I was in Africa running a farm management company. We were working with large landowners, and we were saying, look, how do we help your land reach its potential? Not extracting, but rather how do we help it, motivate it, strengthen it? How do we build it up? It's the same thing with that you're talking about with the body. Like, how do we help your body reach its potential? We're not talking about steroids. We're talking about how do we enable the DNA to reach that ultimate feeling of like, hey, we've reached our, what we were meant to be. So that's something that I'm just absolutely passionate about. And we're getting to that point now with Hinterland Institute, where we have an opportunity. We have veterans, thousands of veterans. Many of them are, around my age, younger guys and gals that are interested in going into this profession. And everyone said, oh, there's no opportunities out there. You're never going to be able to buy land, which, land prices are crazy, but there is an opportunity for them to work on the land. There's over 26 million acres of DoD land, and we're connecting them to it. And we're connecting them to the regenerative practices. Even if they've never touched a ranch before, we want to teach them how to steward land. And we're doing it in a way that, very different from what you see on a lot of these working ranches, where we're moving the cattle often. People think it's excessive work, but what we're seeing is the results are stunning.
Mm.
The land, what you see from, like, as a doctor, what you see on the end result of those who are consuming this is one thing. What we see on the ranches is an entirely different thing, right? The amount of healing that comes from these guys working outside and being intentional with the soil, being intentional with the land and with the animals, that's healing on a psychological level. But what we see with the soil is that, things are coming back, and we're surprising environmentalists. Like, we're seeing turkeys just everywhere. We're seeing a lot of this biodiversity that we didn't expect, like, to all come back. It's coming, and it's only been, a year over at Camp San Luis Obispo, and we're just spreading. We're getting some of these base commanders who were uncertain about things. They're looking at and saying, "Look, we don't need to hire a fire department anymore. we don't need to mow the lawns." Imagine, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to worry about flooding or erosion when we're driving a tank through, and they could get stuck. So some of these things are more on the military system side, where we have to think of ecosystems, and we have to think of the military training world and how we interact with that. But it's funny because there's a lot of overlap. What's good for the environment is also good for these training grounds. We don't want a bunch of thistle growing out there when these guys are trying to do a combat exercise, or we don't want a bunch of poison oak out there. And the thing is that when we're grazing, these environments are much more healthy and sustainable, and they're great for military readiness. And that's the message that we're pushing. We're not pushing some climate change agenda, really. What we're pushing is this meets your goals. And these base commanders are all saying the same thing. They're saying, man, this just cut my cost by, $500,000. And so that's just, we're meeting a lot of the needs, and it's just something that is very organically happening, and we're excited to see it just keep moving. And I that was a long story, but I'll let you go on. Sorry about that.
I love it, Juan. And it's such a brilliant integration, for the light to go off around bringing veterans. I've never served, but in my experience, talking with veterans, particularly special op forces, many of them are just inherently understand and respect the ecosystems they're in. They understand that it's part of who they are and what they do and how they do it. And it's such a beautiful and brilliant integration. I mean, you said a few things that really just jumped out at me that I just want to come back to reemphasize because it's so profound. I think many people, me included, would be surprised to realize just how much land can return to its ancestral properties. I've looked at a lot of Alan Savory's work and other really innovative projects around America and the world, and you look at these barren, desolate lands that you would never predict could come back, and only to see that when the conditions that billions of years have allowed this intelligence to continue to evolve, when those conditions are recreated, amazing things happen, much more, I think, significant than what people might appreciate, and more quickly than what people might appreciate. And I see that with humans as well, right? We're all part of this integrated ecosystem. And I can tell you, Juan, in my work, that a lot of physicians totally fail to appreciate the capacity of the human being to regenerate itself, to heal itself. That's the natural state of our species, and any species, is to heal itself when the conditions are right to do so. And as we all know, in 21st century modern industrial life, those conditions have taken us further away, I think, from those ancestral roots. So I just so appreciate what you said about the resiliency and the ability to return in such a functional and abundant way. And then to take, I was surprised when I first heard you mention this recently. I was listening to an interview you were doing, and 26 million acres under the Department of Defense. I'm aware of these huge bases right out in Nevada, New Mexico, these large land masses. But wow, 26 million acres. I think people would be somewhat stunned to know that our Department of Defense holds that much of a landmass, and a lot of it probably is in desperate need of regenerative restoration.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I know that people talk about waste with government spending, but the thing that when you're coming from an agricultural background, what you see when you're driving for days and seeing DoD land is you're seeing waste of potential when it comes to some of these lands. And obviously we can do this in an extortive way, which we've done for the last several hundred years. Or we can take an approach and say, how do we work as stewards of the land? Because the thing that's really exciting there is that it's a win-win situation. Obviously it's a win-win-win situation because we're able to bring young people back into agriculture. We're able to improve the environment. So all the environmentalists are saying, absolutely, regenerative agriculture is replicating these herds that we saw back in millennia. I was just out at Yellowstone where we've got the big old bison herds, and we're replicating that. But we're doing it in a much more controlled way. We obviously can't completely replicate it because we don't have that size of land. But with the DoD land, we probably will, right? Because some of these bases are, will have access to potentially, hundreds of thousands of acres, which allows us to move the cattle and other livestock in a way that really does replicate the herds, and it brings back a lot of those grasses, which then brings back the turtles and all of the things that everyone wants to see. But the thing that's really exciting is that scale, 26 million acres, we can change the weather.
Yeah. Wow.
And I mean, not just on a small regional or micro scale, we will be able to do that just by bringing grasses back. I'm here in Utah, and there's opportunity for us to potentially support a lot of these producers in transitioning to regenerative. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to take over what they could be using. We want to support them, give them labor, bring in these veterans, and allow them to be, mentored and support as well. It's an interesting relationship where we're going to bring in some of that expertise, but also I would say facilitate, right? We're facilitating regeneration, right? A lot of times doctors, the way that they'll do it, will be like, hey, I'm the doctor, listen to me, fix this. But the people that I talk to, like yourself, when we're talking about regenerative, it's like we need to listen to our bodies. I'm here to facilitate. I'm here to facilitate healing. And I would say that that's what we're doing as stewards, is that how do we listen to the producers and their needs? A lot of their kids aren't wanting to go back into this industry because they think that there's no money in it, which,
Yeah.
to be honest, the old model, absolutely not. There is no money in it. The new model, yes, there is. If we can restore environments, if we can bring back water, tell me that there's not money in that. If we can bring back biodiversity and protect our environments and our native species and bring back grasslands and keep back desertification like you were talking about with the Savory Institute, if we can do that here in Utah, I can tell you that there is government funding, but there's also other funding mechanisms. I mean, we can talk about natural credits where we're bringing back water, putting carbon in the soil. We can tap into a lot of that, and we have partners to do that. And that enables the producers to make more, but to also be much more connected to their land. And right now they're just disconnected because they're so focused on how do I survive? People don't realize that. Like, these guys don't want to destroy their land. They don't want to, but when they don't have options, they have to let things go. And that's the thing that really hurts is that people like to blame these ranchers and farmers for whatever's happening. But they're the ones out there trying to control these wildfires in Utah. They're trying to control it in California, but we want to facilitate a relationship where we're building it with communities, building bridges, working with the fire departments and saying, hey, grazing's that's the best option to prevent these wildfires everywhere. I mean, I was just out at San Luis Obispo where we're grazing, and there's 2 or 3 wildfires going on. And we're like, we could be grazing that. Hundreds of thousands of acres that we could be grazing, and, with the purpose of how do we protect this environment, but also with the forward thinking and saying, how do we feed our country? Because, and this is really where you guys come into play. It's like, how do we feed our troops? How do we bring good, nutritious food to the table? If we're all connected and we're all talking about the same thing, just at different levels, right? I mean, you're talking about it on getting the nutrients to the consumer. We're talking about getting the nutrients to the livestock and to the soil. I think that we're all we're saying the same thing, and we're just really connected and resonating.
Exactly. And it's what I love about what you're doing, Juan. It not only is it holistic, but it creates capacity through coalition building, where once you start to connect the dots, as you describe, just for example, fire risk mitigation, that might not be intuitive to many municipalities. And I think you look at food insecurity, right? And I think there is a bit of a ripeness now with the Maha movement around the power of whole foods, and just as you said, with some of the more modern farming, you've got to kind of wean from that sort of chemical model, and And in caring for people, that's much the same. I spent the first part of my career writing prescriptions for meds. I spent the last half of my career finding ways to take them away, and
Yeah.
almost always it's doable. But I'm mindful that on some levels you're coming up against a bit of these agricultural trends, heavy pesticide use and glyphosate use, and all of the what were probably touted as major advantages to farmers years ago, from productivity, right, yield per acre, have just not come to fruition. And so now there's been this sort of dependence, much in the same way people are dependent on fast foods and hyper palatable foods. And, there's this process of education, of deconstructing these belief systems, many of which are not serving anyone as well as they could be served. And so, it how challenging has it been for you, Juan, in your work as you partner with producers in an attempt to gently re-engineer how they do things without them feeling like they're relinquishing control over what they're doing? You're integrating with the culture of the Department of Defense, and I could imagine on some level, not everyone would see the value of that on their property. What's that experience been like for you, and what have you found helpful in crossing those bridges?
Well, I would say I'm a perpetual optimist. We've had nothing but, I mean, just it's been the most. It's been one tender mercy after another, to be honest. We've been just blessed throughout. I've been excited to hear. There's with the producers. So I'll go at each level, right? With the producers, there is an instant connection, feeling of connection and love for these veterans that come in. We are not imposters. We've all suffered. There's a bit of trauma bonding
Yeah,
that
right.
we all go through. And I will say this, like, I mean, I was talking to a cowboy about this in California, and he was like, we all kind of suffer together, and we would love to have more veterans. Everybody wants more veterans on their farm. They want to work with them, and the reason being is that there's just this instant respect. That is something that you will not get in all these tech people that come out, all of these, policy people. If you're working with USDA, it doesn't matter. You come out and talk to a rancher or farmer, and if you do not garner that respect, I mean, it takes years to build that. What we're finding is that there is a sense of there's a level of respect, because many of them have either they've been in the service before. A lot of my family members had been in the service, and they understand it. And if they haven't personally been in it, their grandpa or their father was in it. A lot of these guys came back from World War II and bought land, and so our rural communities are really built on these values that we found in the military. And so there's an instant connection there. So re-engineering things, that's not really our goal, but building instant rapport and connection, that is something that we're all about. And we come to them and say, look, this is what we're here to offer, right? You're going to have the support you need, because this is the problem that I see with the regenerative communities. And the thing that's really exciting about what we're doing is that 26 million acres, that would not be possible if we weren't working with other producers to get it done, right? Our goal is not to buy millions of cattle and be the biggest cattle company in the US. Our goal is to work with producers and support them in transitioning. Nobody's really supporting them with transitioning. You've got these third-party consultants that they also struggle they don't connect with, and they're like, why do I need to get this certification? tell me, like, am I going to make more money? How does this resonate? Like, once they start doing it, they start to see changes, but it's a lot of work. People don't talk about that. And it's a lot of pain. I told you about my journey and suffering, and I lost, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. So anyone who tells me that regenerative is just up and up, it's not. It's a lot of work. And if you have degraded land, it's not going to be pretty in the beginning. And there's a lot of costs associated with it. One of the biggest costs is the additional labor that you need to have to get it done. So additional labor and potentially additional equipment. So if we need to get collars for the cattle to move them around, then, that's expensive and it's prohibitive for these ranchers. So we want to come in, provide some of these things, provide the labor, provide the support, so that, what do they have to lose? And like I said, there's this instant rapport and trust. So we build off of that and we respect that. There's no hidden agenda. What the real goal is like, look, if we work with you, we can expand and work on more DoD land, and we can meet the needs of the base. If you guys try and do this alone, the base isn't going to trust you, right? Because you're not working with former military guys that understand what a tank looks like and how these military exercises need to run, or how to clear a range. That's not something that a lot of these producers understand, and they don't really care. They want to feed their cows.
Yes.
So then the base hates them because they're like, why are your cows out here when we're trying to shoot? So we're able to step in between them and say, here, we're going to help you guys. One of the things that we also have to do is make sure that this area is off limits, or this area we go on these days, so that we can fit within the military ecosystem as well. So I think that we have run into coordination, like we're learning, and that's something that it's starting to build itself out, because we're identifying the needs and the frustrations of the base, all these bases that are like, I don't want cows on my property. And we just ask the question, why? And when we talk to producers, and there's one producer that we're working with now that at the very beginning, he was like, I don't want to regeneratively graze. I don't want to go grass fed. It doesn't make sense. And instead of saying you're wrong, we're just like, okay, well, let us just, we won't grass finish right now, but what we can do is like, let's move your cows. Are you okay with us doing that? Yes. And then he starts to see that he's not giving them as much medicine. He cut his medicine by I think it was 90%. That's money, right? Like, that's money immediately in his pocket. He's like, oh my gosh, I didn't give him any ivermectin this year because they're not getting parasites, because they're not eating around the place where they're defecating. We're moving them so much. On top of that, they didn't take as much antibiotics, and that was partly because of the nutrition that they're getting. Now, he's the one that's pushing for grass finished, not us, right? And that's the goal, is like, here, look, it's like if you're talking to your clients and you're saying, look, just try walking for one day. Tell me if your mind's just a little bit clearer. Now try fasting one day, or try drinking more water. Like, you're taking steps, but you're not trying to overwhelm them and say, here, try this crazy diet, get off this. I mean, some people do well with that.
Yeah. But the majority don't like that. It's, I mean, I so love, well, sorry to interrupt your flow. It's, but your, the relationship capital, this instant rapport, the trust capital, that the model sort of inherently addresses what can be the most challenging and difficult underpinnings of any change, right? And so I love that. I mean, you seem to have a really powerful awareness around emotional and social intelligence and conflict management. And so I love that is sort of, those are the sort of the underpinnings of building relationship capital that allows people to then realize what's possible without feeling pressured or forced or angry or resentful. It's a beautiful playbook as you move others and build capacity. I mean, that where do you think that comes from, Juan? I mean, you seem very savvy in your awareness of that as a driver of the vision that you are moving toward.
Well, I'd say that I mean, just by chance, I think that my life has kind of taken me back to agriculture, but it's always been through conflict. I say this because initially I served an LDS mission in Kenya, and I was there during the election violence 2007 2008, and that kind of turned almost into a civil war. And what was interesting was seeing in the cities how it all kind of revolved around food and the lack of access to it. I was just blown away that was really, when I actually was talking to people, it wasn't about politics, it wasn't about ideology, it was about food. And then when I went to rural environments where they had food, they didn't even know that a conflict was going on. So
amazing.
That sense of resilience has always, like, it's just been impactful in my life, and ended up same thing in Congo when I was working out there, focused on, like, hey, look, there's a war going on. How do we feed people? How do we prevent conflict? And in our country, when we're talking about the buildup of a conflict, and you guys are working in this, like you're building, these relationships with the special forces community, how do we prepare for, conflict, whether that's internal or external conflicts with other nations? Are we really prepared if we don't have that decentralized food system that allows us to take care of and if our rural communities die, are just gutted out? And to me, that's something that, when I look at it, I do step on people's toes, because it's something I'm very passionate about. And what I've been very excited about is seeing that the new administration has been putting this forward and saying food security is this is a matter of defense, and we have to focus on this, otherwise our country is not ready. You can build all the missiles, you can build all of the bombs that you want to build or manufacture, but if you can't feed your population, you have no buy-in, and the conflict will be internal. And if you don't think that some foreign adversaries want to destroy our food system, you're absolutely wrong. And we have built this unsustainable, unhealthy system of ultra processed foods that all connects back to a lot of these adversaries. And whether that's through the glyphosate that does, a lot of that's coming from a lot of that's coming from ChemChina, or if we're talking about some of the processing facilities that are like processing meat, we have decentralized so much, and a lot of that control is not going to people that have the best interests of our country in mind. You take that as well, and you go out here to Utah, where a good portion of land is actually owned by the Chinese, and you have to ask yourself what's going on. And this is specifically around military bases. So I think that, going back to your question, what's really helped me is just I've been put in these situations. I've seen what happens when a country does not have a sustainable food source, and it's really scary. I mean, you're talking about civil wars. And we think that we're immune to it, because I don't know why people think that, but when you don't have food, I can tell you that you'll see the worst in people. I see it sometimes in my own family. Like, when people are hangry, it's not okay, right? Like, this is
yeah.
So, I mean, this is specifically with my wife. If I do not make sure that she's fed, then I don't know if we're going to make it, you know?
Yeah.
And this is just as a joke, but if you went just a month or a couple weeks, these people would not know what to do, and their values would be tested, and a lot of people would be failing. You know, if you go back and you start to see all these revolutions, and this is the thing that got me excited about and passionate about this, is that you have like the French Revolution, you have the Arab Spring. You go and take these conflicts and you see where it started, go look at the price of bread. Absolutely wild. The research is showing that there's a direct correlation to those prices reaching a certain point, and it's triggered all this conflict. So you can, I mean, like I said, people can talk all day about ideology. What I'm really passionate about is food, because if we can feed people, then we have this sense of stability and resilience. We can make it another day.
Yes.
But if they're not fed, then you don't have you have no you have nothing to build on, and this is where countries fall apart. And so our rural communities, they're the backbone of American agriculture. They're the backbone of America.
Yes.
If we just let them die and we think we can go and have corporations running these farms. I've worked on a corporate farm before, and it was completely detached. It's like our medicine. Like you go into a hospital completely detached from human beings, right? I prefer, like, if you go to some of these alternative medicine things, I feel like there's this distinct, like they're asking questions. What are you feeling internally? Like what's going on? And it's not a checklist. We're not like machines going through the system. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that the truth is I have found that what has driven me is that I feel a sense of urgency. I don't feel fear, but I do think that there's been a sense of urgency, and I can express that, you know, whether that's through stories or through my own experience. And I have just an amazing team of people that have naturally just come together, and you know, that we're doing this before. So I can't. I wish I could take credit for everything, but these guys are. I bring people that are just much smarter and much more capable of doing the things, of getting bases on board, of, you know, working together to solve some of the problems for these producers, and then finding partners like you guys yourselves, like that are going to fix MREs. That to me is like at some point I've eaten the worst MREs in my life, and I really try not to eat them now, because I'm like, I would prefer to go hunt for berries or go eat cactus. I've done that literally in San Antonio. And we got injera bread from a local Ethiopian restaurant, and, you know, packed it in our bags, and we're like, we can't eat this. This isn't food. It's straight chemical. It smells like Windex. It's not good. I mean, I know that this is going to be like for special forces that you guys are going to be doing it, and I just barely got this packet, like just came through, but it's been needed. It's necessary. If we want, I mean, these are the people that are defending our country. It blows my mind that we don't treat them better than Olympians. I mean, Olympians would say probably the same thing. They'd be like, we're working in like the most controlled environment, even when we're racing. These guys are they're working in chaos, you know, with bombs blowing up and things happening. And if your body can't regenerate, if you can't recover immediately from that and be able to work at optimal levels, then what are we doing? How can we defend our country? And how can we can't, you know, get some real regenerative, nutrient dense food in our bodies? It's wild. You see guys that are 30 years old that look like they're 50 or 60.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That's when you're done, right? Like people are like, why would you come in right now? Like you look like and you know, for good reason. Like they're not sleeping. they're just getting treated like machines. But the biggest problem I see is food.
Yeah. Thank you, Juan, for that sharing. I think coalition building, which is essential, I think, in every aspect of complex dynamic systems and problem solving, is easier said than done. And clearly, you've done a lot to be building these bridges. And it takes a certain persona, a certain spirit, a certain vibe that brings people together and opens people up. And yeah, just a very brief segue for essential provisions is it, we are a Whole Foods company. We are a group of culinary artists and scientists and researchers who understand the power of food. And while our MREs are, heat and eat, there isn't a molecule that's new to nature in any of our products. And these are available now, and we have other products that we're bringing in. But it's not only bringing whole nutrient dense food to people from small regenerative farmers in America, and inspiring the quality of the work that we're doing, and making it available to people, but it's giving people food that will love them back. I tell people all the time, there's a lot of foods that we can love that just aren't going to love us back. They'll leave us at the altar, and it can be unforgiving. So there is this, I love this sort of this spirit, this compassion and love for the people, for the food, for the ecosystems. And that's really, I think, where the rubber meets the road at this time in our evolution. But before we adjourn, Juan, you've touched on this a little bit, but give us a few examples of the projects currently that Hinterland is involved with. And then for people who might be interested in learning more about the Hinterland Institute, donating, offering resources, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of exciting things that are happening. I mean, if people have been following us, you'll see that we have a partnership with Will Harris, White Oak Pastures. We have partnerships with Salt Lake Community College, which it's VBRC, which is the Veteran Business Resource Center, and this is the most exciting partnership right now for us, because this is going to allow us to drive home this program and bring in thousands of veterans. And we're fundraising alongside them right now as a fiscal sponsor, and allowing them to kind of lead that charge along with us. And the other things that are really exciting are the bases that are reaching out. I mean, we're in conversations with Camp Roberts. We're talking to a number of bases in California, and Utah has been really exciting. I mean, we've got potentially up to 2.4 million acres. We've got a partnership
Wow.
with Salt Lake Community, or Salt Lake Sentinel Landscapes. And the thing that I keep telling people is, like, this is an all hands on deck movement. You can't be talking about 26 million acres without holding hands with every regenerative leader out there. So we're working with Alejandro Carrillo. We're talking to folks like Roger Savory. We're working with Alan Williams. Like, these are, and Lisa Stokey. Like, these are people that are just leaders in this movement and this initiative, and they're part of our team. Whether they're on the board or they're literally like bringing their expertise as partners. And so we have the right players. We have hundreds of thousands of veterans that want to do this. And on top of that, we have the land. The biggest thing right now that we need and that we're focused on in the next couple of weeks, well, it'll be maybe months, but is the fundraising piece. because what we need to fundraise for is the program itself. And our goal in the next month is to bring in around 2.4 million acres, or sorry, $2.5 million to drive the program for training these veterans, supporting their families, getting them out, recruiting them, getting them out to these bases, and taking care of their needs, whether that's lodging, food, taking care of their salaries, and helping them help these producers. More or less, they come out kind of like liaisons and they're building these bridges in the way that we're teaching them. And so that's really where we're at right now. We're running that campaign. The other thing that's really exciting is that we've got Michael Peterson, this country star, that wants to he's going to be doing a veteran concert series and going to donate a lot of the tickets donate all ticket sales to Hinterland Institute so that we can bring more veterans on board. He's excited about the impact on rural communities. He's excited about supporting veterans. And while we want to support veterans, we actually have a very real reason why we're using veterans. This isn't just about giving veterans a handout. It's more of using veterans as a tool, as facilitators and stewards of the land, and giving them another mission. They are the bridge, and they're a critical piece to this. So it's not just, I try and help people understand that, like, look, this isn't like, where you go to a horse riding facility or equestrian therapy session. Like, this is us bringing in veterans that can handle and could potentially manage hundreds of thousands of acres. And a lot of these guys, when they were younger, at 19, they're out there leading troops in Afghanistan. So these are the kind of people that we want leading this movement in America. There's a reason for it. We've been given the ultimate responsibility, which is American lives. And now we're giving them the ultimate responsibility, which is American land. And I think that's what we're most excited about. So if you're interested in being part of this movement, whether that's partnering with us, that's how we ended up meeting. But if we can build partnerships, we can get this done much faster. We have partners through the MAHA movement as well that are driving this forward on the policy level. But we're looking for donors as well. We're looking not just for donors, we're looking for engaged donors. So people that want to be part of this movement and ride the wave with us. That's a big part. I think donations, the way that they're done nowadays, it's changed. We're looking for people that are not just going to give us $500,000, but that are going to give and continue to be part of this mission, because, like I said, there's a lot of work. This is, your boots on the ground, hands in the soil, and we're going to be, feeding people. And without the right committed parties, like this, just it can't go fast enough. And so I think the timing couldn't be more perfect. If you're interested in being part of this, I'll send over some links. We're just getting those set up with Salt Lake Community College. And like I said, the VBRC, which is the only one in the United States right now, is here in Utah, the Veteran Business Resource Center. They're leading the charge on this. They're expanding from what they initially put out, which was boots to business. And they're going to have us help them in bringing these veterans in to actually do the work. This is like an apprenticeship. These guys get that experience, hands-on experience. If they decide they want to go off and buy their own ranch, great. If they decide they want to work for us, we give them a very competitive salary and help them do the work. We give them all the tools they need, and we set them loose out on some of this land, and we give them the tools and the reach back capability to get the job done.
Fantastic. Stewardship at its very finest, Juan. And it certainly feels to me, and many of us in this sort of space of food, nutrition, public health, that this is the right time. You were the right person in the right time in this moment. And we look forward, we at Essential Provisions, and certainly I personally would greatly value anything that I can do to support your mission. And we look forward to collaborating and taking our partnership deeper in the weeks, months, years ahead. And so I really thank you for your inspiration and for your generosity and your willingness to share with us and others and changing the world, right? And it's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we're just looking for intentional folks like yourself, and we're proud to work with people that are doing it the right way. It's connection before profit, and I appreciate that.
And I will just close to remind others that if they have any interest in our meals ready to eat, we have some protein supplements. There you go. Thank you, Juan. Check us out at essentialprovisions.com. We're always adding new MREs and products to our product line, which will be evolving over the next several months. And it's a pleasure to, be moving toward a vision where healing the world, healing this planet. I'm reminded through your life force, Juan, that is alive and well, and it gives me hope. And I thank you. You have an awesome day.
And nobody would have thought that it would have been through through DOD. But you know what? We can use whatever we're given.
Exactly.
And I think timing is everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.